So we will begin passing the baskets now. In keeping with the 7th tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we are entirely self-supporting through our own contributions. The cost of putting on our meeting averages about $1,520 a month. We pay $1,050 for this room, which also includes a professional audio-visual technician. We also pay between $120 and $300 for professional childcare. We prepare a base entree, salad, and garlic toast. That and other supplies, including plates, utensils, napkins, and coffee supplies, cost money. Also, after our prudent reserve has been established, that's all it says. Okay, I was a journalism major. Anyway, okay. Your generous contributions are vital to ensure that Citywide will continue to thrive. Please give generously. If you would like to write a check, please make it out to Citywide Dallas. Contributions by credit or debit card can be made at the literature table at the back of the room. You can also contribute via PayPal and even set up a recurring contribution on PayPal too. And please visit our website at citywidedallasaa.org and click on the contributions tab for our PayPal link. And you can also contribute with the new QR codes that are around somewhere too, that's tab says. Thank you for your generous contributions. All right, thank you. So, all right, I'm just gonna start doing this. Larry, okay, so a few years ago, I was introduced to this conference called Statewide. And I listened to the talks, and they've all had impact. But some of them had impact, more than others, just like if something resonates with somebody that might resonate with someone else. And so I heard this talk that Larry did on 6 and 7 in 2009, and it had such a profound impact on me. And when we were planning our anniversary for 2020, there was nobody else that I wanted to have come speak. And Gary, who was also one of the past chairs, I think Larry had the misfortune of actually sponsoring Gary when he was newly sober in Long Beach. I think you passed him off to somebody else. So, to Aaron? Oh, I love that. Anyway, all right. So we asked Larry to come speak. He was supposed to speak in March of 2020, and then he had to speak in April of 2020. And we all know how 2020 went. And so then when we got to start back up, Larry, was scheduled to speak in October, and then something came up and he couldn't come. And so his plane ticket expired in March of 2020. And by God's grace, he's here. Like, I didn't even want to say that he was here until he was here. He is here. So anyway, the impact that talk had on me was that the level of commitment and consistency to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that the authenticity, and that how he spoke from the heart about what God has done in his life, especially with his defects of character, which mine are often raging. Just ask my husband. And but you just never know that when you say yes to a commitment, how a smile or a handshake or bringing someone into the circle, or certainly maybe, saying something from the podium, maybe even something you don't say from the podium. Ricky and I were talking about that because we hear lots of things in our head. But you just never know what you can do, the impact that you have by sitting in the room. And you don't know the impact that you've had on me, and certainly a lot of other people in this room, by just saying yes and getting on the plane. So thank you for getting here more than 2 years later. So y'all, may I please introduce Larry Thomas from the Bellflower Big Book Group in Bellflower, California.
Hi everybody, my name is Larry Thomas and I'm an alcoholic. Larry. My sobriety date is May 2nd, 1982. My home group is the Big Book Group of Bellflower, California. And thank you, Jennifer. I was expecting a little more than that. But, I'm glad to be with you. I've been thinking about this thing for 2 years, and and a lot's happened in that 2 years. I had an aorta valve taken out, and they couldn't find a human replacement, so they went to Midland and got me a cow valve, and it's working out pretty good. I can shit standing up now, and and every time I go driving by a pasture, I have this urge to just wander over there. And of course, I constantly have 5 flies on my ass. So, but I'm glad to be with you guys. And I tell you what, there is power in the unity of a home group. Let me tell you, and it's no different than what's going on right here. I love being with you guys. Something happens to this drunk when he's with you. Something happens to him that he couldn't come up with by himself. And if you're new, I'm no big deal in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am no big deal. I am just a coffee maker and a cookie lady. And I'm just, my sponsor tells me that I'm living proof that a man can stay sober for close to 40 years and not amount to a damn thing. So, I'm here to give you hope if you're new, you know. Don't want to set the bar too high, you know, because if you're anything like me, by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was up to here with information on what to do. All my life, since the time I was 13 till the time I was 30, it had been it seemed like every year of my life, more than once a year, for all those years, there was some new group, some new person, some new hall, some new meeting place where people were trying to keep me from drinking. Their sole goal was to remove me from alcohol. And little did they know that to the alcoholic of my type, there lies the problem. That it wasn't drinking that was the problem. Heck, that was my answer. It came to my head as an answer no matter what the problem was. It was an automatic answer. And my problem was when I was not drinking. Sobriety drove me to drink time and time and time again, you know. I really, you know, I couldn't stand it, you know. And people kept telling me, now come on now, you know, don't drink no matter what, and you know, rest on your hands and don't drink if your ass falls off and you come back, no ass, 30 days. And what I've learned by you folks in Alcoholics Anonymous is that's just the porch. That's just where you start. That's just where this thing kicks in. And what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for this loser is something that I needed all my life. And I'll never forget it when I heard it from my sponsor when I was a couple years old. And it came into words like this. When I think of sobriety, the idea of drinking or not drinking never enters my mind. When I think of sobriety, I think about the way I live. And for people like me, and I assume some of you out there, that seems to be the problem. That I can't live sober the way I used to do when I was drinking. That there has to be a change. And I can't bring that about. Because I'm obsessed with this thing about drinking constantly. And people like you and I know that we've got to get rid of that. And I didn't know what to do. And we wind up living what the book calls an alcoholic torture. Where you stay sober as long as you can, and you stay drunk as long as you can, and there's never nothing in between. But this restless and irritable and discontented, that alcoholic torture, where you know every time you stop drinking, you know perfectly well what you just did. You're surrounded by the nightmares and the tortures and the things that people have done to you and the things that you did, and yet and you know the consequences if you're going to drink again. You know what's happening to your body. And you know the consequences of where you're going to go if you get locked up again. And we have all this information when we're not drinking and we're trying to stay sober again. And it seems like to me that the longer I stay sober, the more those thoughts go away. And no matter how nasty that last drunk was, no matter how nasty my life is looking over my shoulder, it's just a matter of time, man, when that idea of all ideas, the idea that dominates me, comes into my mind. What's the use? What's the use, Larry? You've tried this before. Who you kidding? Who you kidding? What's one drink of, Old Crow gonna do? Just a shot. And I'm off and running. And I can't stop that on my own. I can't stop that, and I didn't know what to do until I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't come running in here, I tell you what, I like to sit up here and stand up here and tell you that alcohol was my problem. I did that nasty thing like a fifth step. And I found out that my life is my fault. I'm the culprit. I'm no victim. You know what I mean? And I tell you, it was a miracle that I was beaten enough that your ideas started sounding good. That I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I can't blame Mom and Dad. I come from a great home. I come from beautiful people. I was born in Detroit, and I come out to California when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And my mom was a sweet little lady, man. My mom was a little Scandinavian lady, and she loved diet pills. So no matter what time you got up, she was doing something, you know what I mean? Sorting nuts and bolts into the garage, raking the yard, she's always doing something, and she used to eat that speed and make Afghans, and everything in the house had fresh Afghans all the time. The chairs had Afghans, the couches had Afghans. My dad's golf clubs had little poodle heads she just met, If they had any pets, they had a fresh vest on, and everything was tight and pink just like her, and no matter what time you got up, she was up doing something, you know what I mean? Cleaning tile with your toothbrush or something. Just a busy lady. And as some of you guys know, and gals, that if you eat enough speed, you have a lot of hobbies. Am I right? See that whole section over there is not, there's not a real tooth in any of those heads. You bet.
Fucking funny.
And her favorite hobby was to eat that speed and make these big jigsaw puzzles, right? Not the 9,000 pieces or the 20,000 pieces, right? No. She'd make the 1 million pieces, right, of the Mojave Desert. You know what I mean? This would excite her. She'd come running into oh honey, it's going to be a beige night tonight, you know what I mean? And she would run down to the drugstore and get her prescription filled, thank God, you know what I mean? And get that stinky peroxide that she'd put on her head and get her a carton of Raleigh cigarettes. She loved to smoke those Raleigh cigarettes because on the back of each pack of cigarettes, there was a little stupid coupon that she would save, and there was a little catalog, and if you save enough of the coupons, you can buy some stuff, you know what I mean? And she would buy more yarn. It was a hideous sight that she was one that I know you know about, And man, she'd gather up all of her stuff, her cigarettes and her peroxide and stuff, and she'd get to the house and, put her one and only muumuu on she had for 50 years, and squeeze behind the old breakfast nook, and start putting together this damn puzzle. And by golly, if she had a piece that didn't fit, well, she had a big pair of toenail clippers. She just slipped that son of a wedged it right in there, you know what I mean? That was a hell of a work ethic, one that I dodged, you know what I mean? And just a beautiful lady, man. And I never want to forget what it was like. I never want to forget what it was like growing up. And as much as I love that lady, what it was like to be 18 or 19 years old, and you just get out of jail and the bus lets you off at the courthouse because you're going to go to the probation department and do all that stuff. And the bus lets me out on a Monday. And I don't go running into the courthouse. I go running into the neighborhood. And I come out on a Thursday. 4 days later, I show up. And I didn't show up at the courthouse. I didn't show up at the house. No, you know where I showed up? I showed up at my mom's place of business at about 7 o'clock in the morning. You see, she's cleaning people's houses on the weekend, and during the week she's a cashier at a dry cleaners. And I used to make fun of her. But I wasn't making fun of her that day. You see, because I knew I played her like a fiddle. I knew she had some money. And I showed up unannounced on this rainy day with my filth and my disgust, and as Wino Joe used to call the habiliments of despair. We know what that looks like. And I'm hiding behind a parked car, and I'm about from here to those double doors, looking in my mom's place of business. And I'm hiding behind that parked car with the rain, and I'm waiting for that last customer to come out so I can make my move. And that customer leaves, and I start walking through that parking lot, and I'm looking at my bare feet, and I got one idea: she better have a buck. And I walk through that rain, and I open up that glass door of her dry cleaners, and that brass bell hits that door, and my mom turns around and she says, "Oh my God, Larry, where have you been?" And I said, "Don't you honey me." And she goes to her wallet, and she peels out a couple bucks. And I run by that wallet, and I grab that dollars, and I run into Wilmington, California, where I'm going to die. Now, the thing that brings it home to me, if you're new, you take the same man, new in Alcoholics Anonymous, with my so-called desperation. And I need to ask you something if you're new. How come when my life depends on it, if you were to put the secretary of this meeting that same distance as me and my mom in that parking lot, how come when my life depends on it, you can't walk that same distance and ask the secretary for a job in a meeting that's going to save your life, but you can walk that distance time and time and time again and break somebody's heart? And I'm here to share with you that it's been my experience that if my alcoholism doesn't kill me, my selfishness and my self-centeredness, make no mistake about that, which is why it's necessary for a man with 39 years to have a home group and a sponsor and a job in that meeting. And it's for one reason and one reason only. It's not so that I could come out to Texas and tell you the good news, Well, a little. But it's for one reason and one reason only if you're new. I will never get so sober that I can't get drunk again. But I can get so drunk that I can't make it back. And I never want to forget what I used to be like and what's happened to me and what I'm like today. You see, just because you have 39 years and you've had the obsession removed doesn't mean you can't drink again. Because the obsession to drink can come back. And it won't come back as a form of a drink. It'll come back as a form of, I don't need to do this anymore. Little subtle movements. Oh, I don't need to go back to the home group. I don't need that commitment. I got 4 meetings a week. I don't need to make that call to my sponsor. I don't need. And before you know it, you're doing so little of Alcoholics Anonymous that your whole life is upside down. Everything else is taking front seat to the thing that's saving your life. Everything. And that's why I need to be around you. Because I'm not always... If you're new, it's been my experience that if you're coming to these meetings to get, you're going to be disappointed. There's nothing to get in AA. There's nothing to get. Look around you, for Christ's sakes. They're selling old T-shirts and hope you'll buy them. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's nothing to get here in AA. Well, I tell you what. The only thing that you're going to get if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous is be prepared to be divinely inconvenienced for the rest of your damn life. This is the longest thing I've done against my will my entire life, which is why it works so well. It doesn't have nothing to do with comfort. There's not a chapter on how you feel in the day about this, you know what I mean? Are you in? You know what I mean? What happens to people like me who do the uncomfortable to get comfortable is they finally start believing in this thing. See, I didn't have a God. I had one, but I left him. I left him at an early age. You see, my father was a great man. My father was a great man. He was a World War II vet, and he was born in the streets of Detroit. And he was in the Navy. And he was in World War II. And he was in the Battle of Midway, and his ship got sunk. He lost all of his high school buddies. His dream was to come back to Detroit, get a job, and marry my little mom, and come back to California. My dad loved drinking. My dad was a happy singing the blues and Nat King Cole, Bobby Darin drunk boy. He was a window climbing outie, man. You know, he snuck into my window one night, and that big old boot came down on my chest, right? And I grabbed that boot and I said, "Hey, Pop!" I said, "My God, you know, why don't you have Mom make you a set of keys for God's sake, you know?" I mean, she's up anyway. I can hear the hoop. My dad was a happy drunk, man, you know, and I remember being about 5 years old, and I'm in my room playing a set of drums that I'd made out of cardboard boxes. My old man comes in there, and he's a refinery worker, so he's always coming in different hours every week. He come in there, and he says, "You're going to have a baby brother. Mom's going to have a baby." Man, I started planning. Oh, man, I started oiling up my glove and saving up my baseball cards and, you know, thinking about me and that kid brother going to the drag races and going to the beach, and oh, this is going to be great, you know. And now I can, you know, don't have to put up with my two sisters. I got my little brother, and man, I started, you know, hoping for that. And then the day of my mom going to the hospital and stuff, my dad came in that room again, and he says, "Your baby brother died." And I don't remember having any ounce of compassion for my mother or father in that situation. I did what I would do to this day if I don't understand something. I got mad at it. And I ran after the old man with all 60 pounds, yelling and screaming, "You promised me. You promised me." And I blamed my father for something that he had no power over. But the most important thing that came out of that is what it did to my idea about this thing called God. See, my mom had been trying to get me to do things in the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and send me off to little groups because she knew I was restless, irritable, and discontented, you know. And I thought to myself, what type of God is that would kill a little baby? I'm next. And I started running away from this idea of a power greater than myself or Jesus or Jehovah or anything. And I couldn't trust my parents. And I started building this wall between me and my father that wouldn't come down until I was 30 years sober. Or 30 years and I was coming into AA. You know? And we started separating. And, but man, I tell you, at the age of 11, I got tired of running away. Started sneaking out of that house. I couldn't trust these folks. I couldn't trust the thing called God. I couldn't trust direction that people were giving me. And I spent a lifetime trying to figure this thing out. I was on my own, constantly running away from home. You can find me in a tree fort. You can find me anywhere but home. I couldn't stand being at home. I didn't like what I heard over there. I didn't like what I was seeing. I was afraid to eat because if you drop something, you know you'd get it and all this stuff. And so at 11 years old, I went out with a couple of buddies of mine, and you know, we were in a garage and we started passing around a bottle of Four Rose whiskey. And for the first time in my life, man, this little kid that knew he was a nobody. I didn't have to hear that. I knew it. I knew I was a nobody. I knew that my whole life was just trying to figure out what's making you happy, and then maybe I can copy it. I knew I was a nobody, that I didn't have anything in here. I didn't have no drive to become somebody. I didn't have no drive to, what are you going to be, an architect or nothing? I didn't have anything like that. And I was afraid to ask people and tell somebody about it. I was afraid to ask for help. I didn't want to get hit. But at 11 years old, this nobody took a shot of Four Rose whiskey, and I never laughed so hard my entire life. I never threw up so much my entire life, you know, and coughing up things I ate when I was 6 months old, for God's sake, you know. And that evening, the magic of all magic happened to me, man. At 11 years old, I kissed my first Latin woman. Oh my God, it was my aunt. I went after my Auntie Della, man, you know, and made my uncle a little edgy, you know what I mean? But I tell you what, man, that next morning, and I remember going home that night, man, and I knew I had to sneak into the house because I didn't know what time he was coming home, and I finally snuck in, and I threw myself on that old bed, and then the bed took off and started going around, you know what I mean? Passed out, and I woke up the next morning, and I go, oh my God, I'm going to get it. He damn near sawed your arm off for smoking. He's going to light you up now, man. And I didn't know where he was, and I got up and I opened up my door and I looked down the hall, you know, to see where the old boy was, and he wasn't around. Looked out the curtain, there's no car. He's gone. This is great. I'm going down the room there, the other little room where my dad has a bar. My dad had his own bar. He made his own bar. And it's not like one of those ones where you can, you know, sit 20 guys, you know. It fit one man. There was a true alky bar just wrapped around him, man, you know what I mean? And I opened up that door, and I was going to go in there and take a shot of his port wine or something like that, you know. And I went to it, and I snuck in, you know, the sleuth that I am, and looked in it, and there was a lock about the size of a big book on that thing, man. He knew who was down the hall, you know what I mean? And I tell you, more important of all the things that I remember about that was what it did to this nobody. For 4 hours, I felt like somebody. And to a nobody, that's top of the world. I would rather be a somebody for 4 hours than know for sure I'm going to be a nobody at all times. And I knew I found the thing that was going to do it. And I knew it was all over the place. And alcohol started taking a lead in my life because I couldn't wait for the next time to do it. And the next time. Now, I'm only 11, so I didn't start hitting the bars and all that, you know. But I come preoccupied with doing it again, and doing it again. And the older I got, the more I drank it. And by the time I got into being a high school, you know, freshmen in high school, kids are going to their lockers to get their books and stuff. And I'm a freshman, and I'm going to my locker to take a little shot of some Thunderbird wine, maybe took some barbiturates or something, right? And I was off and running, you know. And when I'm a freshman, I started dating this little Mexican girl, and she had a couple brothers, and they liked cars, and I love cars to this day. Now, I didn't have a Dodge truck like you guys have that with these 9-foot tires, and you drive over each other's houses on the weekend, you know. Come on, Billy, you know what I mean? None of that stuff, you know what I mean? But I did have a 62 Chevy Impala drop right down to the ground, man. I had my hair slicked back. It was as big as Porter Wagner's, man. It was like that. I had my hair slicked back, you know, and I had my white T-shirt and my black pants that came up to here. Had a little Mexican girlfriend named Lupe, and she would curl her hair with soup cans, and the noodles were stuck in there, you know. We'd drive around drinking that cheap wine and listening to the Four Tops and the Temptations and the OJs and Marvin Gaye, and God, I loved it, man. I was in my plumbing truck not too long ago, and the Four Tops came on, and hell, I just started sinking in my damn house. I loved it, man. And I remember one day we were drinking that 151 rum. And we started at about 10:30 in the morning, you know what I mean? And by about 3 o'clock in the morning, we're, you know, bouncing around and she says, Wado, she says, let's go to the Jack in the Box and talk to the puppet. We were a lonely couple, you know. And you know, at about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I'd been drinking so much Win 51 that I seen about 10 puppets when I rolled in. You know, and they were all yelling at me, "Can I have your order, please?" You know what I mean? And I rolled up to the, you know, I seen the puppet there, and I aimed for it, and I ran him over. You know, his head's hanging out. He's still yelling at me, "Can I have your order, please?" Right? The cops come, they arrest me, they throw me on the hood of the car, they shatter my hair all over the place, right? And I don't drive till I'm 30. Well, big deal. Let Rudy drive, man. You guys know there's nothing like driving shotgun. Oh, man, there's nothing like riding shotgun. Looking at yourself in that mirror, see your hair all standing straight up. It's got cigarette butts tucked in it and stuff like that, you know. It's all flat because you've been passed out on the windshield. You open up, you look in the mirror, you take another shot, you see all that tamale puke on your chest, and you feel like dancing. You know what I mean? I do. Go down to the old Hideaway Lounge, man, you know, and you see her in the back, and you know you gotta ask her to dance, man, and you go sliding up, you know. You got those, you know, your girlfriends are telling you that, you know, men with big feet are well endowed, right? So I got right? Am I right? So I got a pair of 15-inch shoes on, you know. I'm walking over to my new honey, you know. I feel like I'm skiing, you know what I mean? I come sliding up to her, you know.
It's funny.
And I start talking to her, and then she had a girlfriend, this lady did, and she starts beating the snot out of me, and she hits me down, and my feet are locked under the guardrail, so I keep coming up. I feel like a puppet, man. It was like that, I tell you. I was a victim of gay bashing that night, man. That old girl knocked the snot out of me, man. And I rode with those guys for years and years, and man, you know, and I became somebody. It wasn't, nobody knew about it, but in my own mind, I became Lawrence of Torrance, you know what I mean? Nobody knew about it but me, and that's all it takes, man. I became somebody, and around 1969, folks are going different places, and I don't know where I'm going to go. I thought, well, you know what? Let me grab my buddy, and let's head out to Detroit and find my roots. So me and my buddy, my dope dealer, we head out to Detroit, and we land in Phoenix, you know, and there I am on North Central and Roosevelt at the Apache Hotel, right? 5 floors high. Everybody has a bathroom. It's down the hall. Everybody has a TV. It's in the lobby. $13 a night, and I'm running out of money, you know, and I'm afraid to leave my room during the day, and I'm afraid to be alone at night. So I find myself a little watering hole down there called the Wagon Wheel Bar. Everybody loves a Wagon Wheel Bar. It's a great little alky place. It has no windows, just a dirty maroon curtain blowing through the doorway, right? And I meet a guy named Ernie. And every bar has an Ernie. Ernie's the answer man. You know what I mean? You need some 15-inch shoes, Ernie's got them. You need a gun, Ernie's got it. You need anything, Ernie's got it. And everything's in his trunk, you know? And I rolled up there, and Ernie says, you need a job. You know what I mean? He says, come back here in the morning, and I'll get you a job. And I rolled in there at 6 o'clock, and Ernie introduced me to this plumber. Well, I never plumbed a thing in my life. You know what I mean? And so he introduced me to this plumber, and he takes me out in the desert, and he sticks me underneath this house, and he says, look here, hotshot, all I want you to do is hang copper. That's all I want you to do, kid. You got 9 hours under here, just hang copper. And he says, I'll be right back in 9 hours. And he took off, and I'm underneath this house. Now, if there's anything that I've always loved, is I love being in your house. I don't care if it's the bathroom, the kitchen. I love your home and the things in it. And here I am underneath this house. And I'm just so excited about what I'm going to find. You know what I mean? You'll find something. And I'm underneath this house, and I'm excited. He gave me a transistor radio. I got a pint of PM bourbon, and I'm ready to do some plumbing. And I started walking around, you know, crawling around underneath this house, and I see this stray cat, and I go, oh my God, this is great. This is great, man. this is great. I got a transistor, I got a pint, I got a pet. My life is coming together, man, So I started drinking that PM bourbon, right? Well, it didn't take long, where I'm crawling around and I finally, bust up through the lady's house. I rob her of all of her jewelry and some of her money. I go back underneath the house, keep hitting that PM, and I pass out. And my boss is dragging me out of the hole of the house, and this cat comes out with a bunch of necklaces on, And I get fired from that job. Go back down to that wagon wheel bar, and Ernie says, well, he says, I know what we're going to do. He says, not too far from here is a horse track. He says, we're going to get you down to 95 pounds. You're going to be a jockey. And I said, great, man. We get to start working out and physical health, I said, well, I don't know about that. He says, but I need you to take this stuff because we got to get you down to 95 pounds in 2 months. And so he gives me this stuff. I don't know what it is. And he says, I'm in my little room, and he says, I'll come back here in 2 months, and we'll go weigh you in, and then go get our colors. And he takes off. And I'm in this little room, and I've never taken this stuff before. I'm just I've just been drinking whiskey and cheap wine and doing heroin, minding my own business, And I just start taking this stuff, oh my God, I start running around that room like I'm chasing a fly and looking out my window every 10 seconds, and what's that? What's that? What's that? Or I'm underneath the bed scared to death, man, because I'm frightened because I see these black and white flashes that are scaring the snot out of me, and it's the sun coming up and down, what I mean? I've never taken that stuff before, my mom used to take it, I said, my God, and Ernie doesn't come back 2 months, he comes back 2 weeks later, knocks on that door, I open up the door, and I'm like, God, what's wrong with you? You couldn't have possibly taken it. Well, I did, Ernie, you can put a saddle on me and ride my ass all over the place. You couldn't have possibly taken that stuff, and so we canned that idea, and I finally started working for this other plumber, went down to the wagon wheel, and I introduced myself to this plumber, and I started working for this guy, and after about, 2.5 hours, I quit. So I ain't working for nobody that's younger than me. I ain't working for no kid. I got my pride. So I did what any honorable man would do. I faked a knee injury, and they take me to the general hospital over there in Phoenix, and the doctor writes me a prescription for Percodan, and then he leaves, and he left me a cardboard box full of blank prescription pads he wanted me to have, right? So I take that old box, man, I head down North Central, right? Ducked into the old wagon wheel. Ernie sees these things. Oh my God, this is great. This is great. He makes a phone call to some guy in Mesa, Arizona, or Yuma, Arizona, and we start, drinking that cheap tequila and writing prescriptions. Man, I was writing prescriptions for Seconal and Nembitol and Tuinol and you name it all. We took it all. And after about 9 months, they caught up with me. And when you're loaded on cheap whiskey and barbiturates, there's no freeway chase going down to 15. There he goes down there, get the helicopter, none of that's happening, right? I was going 9 miles an hour. The cop was on foot. He was just... My God, can he run? He yanked me out of that dang car, man. They threw me in jail for over a year, and after 1973, I get out of that jail, and they send me on a Continental Trailways back to Los Angeles, California. I go in the probation department, and my probation officer gives me a voucher for a hotel, and he puts me on Antabuse. And for the first time in my life, I'm separated from alcohol. One more time, trying to separate me from alcohol, right? And no talk of AA, none of that stuff. And he sticks me in this little hotel in downtown Torrance. Now here's everybody that I've been talking to at this stage of my life is telling me that I need some goals. You need something to shoot for. What do you want to be when you grow up? And that's tough to hear when you're 30, you know what I mean? And here's my goal at this time. I'm in a boarding house where it's just a hallway, and there's 5 rooms on each side. About enough for a bedroom, a chair and a couple things to hang, and there's a little window you look out of. Once a week I would look out that window and I would see the Roy Tan Hotel across the street. And the Roy Tan would have a sign about this size that says, "Rooms for rent with hot plate." I'm going to have one of those. One of these days, I'm going to work for this plumber long enough and I'm going to have me one of those. And it never happened. Well, at 2 months on this antabuse, my probation officer sets me down to a job interview to be a part-time janitor at a refinery. And I don't have a car. I'm not going to be driving until I'm 33. So I'm taking a bus everywhere. And you folks know what that's like. You're either 2 hours early or 2 hours late. There's none of this, "I'll be right there." You know what I mean? And I wind up at this little town, El Segundo, California. And I got 3 hours to wait for my interview. So I go to this little park. Nothing but antabuse in me. For a little over close to 90 days. The longest I've ever been separated without anything, no dope, nothing. And I'm in this Little League park. And I go to the ball field. I go to the Little League field and I'm in this dugout. And I start thinking about Dad. Because we used to play baseball catch in the driveway. What a happy time that was. I start thinking about Mom. Start thinking about all these things. I start crying like a baby. Then I start laughing like a clown. I start crying. This goes on for a couple hours. I've become so paranoid that these hallucinations that used to float through me when I'm DT and now are sticking to me. They say I could become somewhat catatonic. Somebody sees me milling around that ball field and they call the ambulance. The ambulance comes and gets me and sends me to the Harbor General Hospital. I'm on a gurney. Got an arm and a leg tied down, and the doctor comes over with his little tablet. Says, "Son, it seems to be by the way you've been living, that we need to put you in a mental facility so we can figure out what's wrong with you and have you observed." And so they put me in a little van, sent me out to the beautiful hills of California to a mental facility where they were going to observe me for 30 or 60 days, and a year later they let me out. Totally observed, right? We couldn't find a thing in that young man, you know what I mean? And they gave me the proper medication they thought for me. And after 2 months, I ran out of Thorazine. And in 1975, they find me in downtown Los Angeles. Across the street from Alvaro Street at a place, at a Chevron gas station. I'm on a pile of tires. I'm not over there vaping. I'm over there because at this time in my life, I'm in and out of the jungle. When you're in the jungle, there's not a thing you don't do for a drink. There is no invisible line of, "Oh, I can't do that." At this time, there is not a thing you won't do. And I'm over there on those pile of tires, and I'm just resting, and I'm letting the sun hit me, and I'm 120 pounds. All of a sudden, I'm being arrested for being a public nuisance, violation of probation, out-of-state forgeries. The cops chain me up and they take me to the county jail and they send me up to Wayside, California, where I'm going to be sentenced to 3.5 years in the state penitentiary. After about 40 days, they put about 40 of us in a black and white bus and sent us to the South Bay Courthouse in Torrance, California. And we're in a holding tank about the size of this room. And one by one, all the guys that were on that chain with me are being called out by the judge. And at 4 o'clock, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm the only one left. I'm on a Vons bag with no hope, wondering where they're going to send me now. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I heard the most beautiful sound I've heard in a long time. And that's the set of some keys coming down the hallway. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a Scottish man with a patch, and they roll open that jail door, and he's standing there. "Aye, lad." He's got a patch on. "Aye, lad, are you Larry Thomas?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He says, "Ah, that's great." He says, "My name is Alex." come with me, son, we're going to AA. And I thought, my God, what's AA? You know, I've heard of OR and PO, but what's AA, you know? And who's this Scottish pirate all of a sudden? You know? I've been hallucinating so much, you know, you know, where's your parrot at, you know? 1 foot, you know. He says, come with me, son, and he took me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I was ready for a long ride up north and maybe some lunch, right? Took me for a 15-minute car ride to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. He rolled up to this dingy, stinky, rotten, filthy, perverted Torrance Lameda Alano Club. I never heard that word before in my life, Alano. You know? What the hell's an Alano? You know? Watch for crossing Alanos? You know, what is an Alano, you know? And he rolled up to this this Alano Club, and he started introducing me to all these goofy people. You know, Captain Bob, Indian Genie, Tennessee Bill, Santa Claus Ray, Dancing Pete, and Whistling Butt, and all these, oh my God, you know. I just left a group of people like that, right? Little Moose was 120 years old, she comes running after me, you know. Hi, honey, my name is Moose, and I'm expecting a miracle. I said, I bet you are. I said, it ain't me, you know what I mean? And then this big transvestite comes walking up to me, you know, and he comes, had his new moo-moo on. He says, hi. He says, I can't wait to take you to a candlelight meeting. I says, I don't think so, big guy. You know, maybe when I get a year, you know. I told Alex, I said, my God, that man's got big feet, you know. And I said, my God, if that's AA, I don't want any part of it. And if that's the effect of that big blue book, I don't want to crack that thing open either, right? And from 1975 to 1982, I came in and out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't come in and out of AA. I did what I've been doing my entire life. I'm a something-for-nothing guy. All my life I've been sitting in rooms, from the church, from the hospitals, to the institutions, to self-help groups. All my life I've been sitting in that chair waiting for you to do something for me. I've had my hand out my entire life, and what I was waiting to be done to me, God was waiting to do through me. There's a miracle here. Something happens here. When I finally was able to rightly relate myself to what's wrong with me, I didn't drink myself into Alcoholics Anonymous. I identified myself into AA by listening to your stories, not reading another book, not hearing another sermon. I listened to you folks one-on-one in your meetings and how you told me things about you that I could hang my hat on. And if you're new and you're feeling different, let somebody in on it. Find somebody in these rooms that you can saddle up with and cough up those nuggets that make you feel different. And believe me, you will not shock the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. No matter what that thing is, if it hasn't been done by the people in the first 2 rows of this damn meeting, it just hasn't been thought of yet. This is some disgusting folks you got here, God love them. All you good people back there, you know. Get it out of your head. It's like a chia pet. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You know what I mean? That was the thing about my alcoholism. And me and you talk about it all the time, about what it did to us. It made me bigger. It made me bigger feet and bigger hands. That may be true, but it wasn't really happening. It only happens to 1 out of 10 people get that effect. The other people just drink and throw up. Me and you, we go places, baby. We do crap we haven't even dreamed of doing, man, and know we could do it, you know. And every time I called Alcoholics Anonymous, one of you folks would come and get me. One of you folks would come and get me. And that was the beautiful thing about Alex. That day that he came and talked to me in that jail, he got the worst news of his life that day. And his little wife was dying immediately of a terminal illness. And he knew she was in good hands, but he knew he wasn't. But somewhere in his meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, he would sit next to you folks in Texas. And he would grasp and develop a manner of living that ingrained in him this. Practical experience tells us that nothing will ensure immunity from drinking but intensive work with other alcoholics. This works. He was there to carry the message. He knew that was his answer. You see, because the same thing that happened to Alex happened to Bill, our co-founder, laying in that bed at Towns Hospital. Bill didn't just lay there and have a kaboomie. No, he had a visitor. Ebby came there with his little proposals and talked to Bill. And Bill applied those things to the best of his ability. And in that bed, Bill had this profound experience. One that I was to be discouraged by, because for 5 years I came around after I got sober and thought I had done it wrong because I didn't have a kaboomie like Bill. But sitting in your book studies at 5 years sober, sitting next to my sponsor and grand sponsor, I read that a paragraph, 2 paragraphs after that man had that profound experience, Bill was still laying in that hospital bed, and the thought came to him that maybe I could work with other alcoholics. I believe for me that my singleness of purpose, my primary purpose was hatched that afternoon. That I'd been given my instructions for life. I'd been given my purpose. Why am I born? Why am I was just given it that day. And I finally felt that what Bill had happened to him suddenly, he's hoping and praying will happen to me gradually. But baby, the end game's the same. We're here to tote that message. We're here to carry that message. Isn't that an amazing thing about this thing? And on May 2nd, 1982, I'm in downtown Wilmington getting kicked out of a mission one more time. And I'm on the corner over there in the alley. And I don't have any money, and I'm wondering what I'm going to do. And I'm afraid I'm going to drink again, and I don't want to. I don't want to be tied to that bumper again. And I know I'm gonna. And I was able to rightly relate myself to alcoholism for the first time in my life. All my life I've been hearing that it's something that I have. You have alcoholism. You have a problem with drinking. You have this. You have this. When I was able to rightly relate to myself to this alcoholism, it came to be like this. I'm in the grip of a progressive illness. It has me. I don't have it. And it'll always have me. And what Alcoholics Anonymous does for a loser like me, it loosens up that grip just enough to be useful to you and to carry this message. I will never get so sober that I can't get drunk again. But I can get so drunk that I can't make it back. And for the first time in my life, I knew what I was surrendering to. All those years I come to Alcoholics Anonymous is something I did because I want to quit. And by golly, you're either in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings or you're at them. What's it going to be? And I realized what was going on with me, that I need you every day of my life. And that there's no fight in it. And man, I panhandled some money, and I was afraid I was going to drink, and I'm sitting on that corner. And the thought came to me that I could finally feel the hopelessness and the futility of my life with me running it one more day. That I did the hardest thing for an alcoholic to do, surrender. To ask for help. See, if I'm quitting, it's all me still. But I surrendered. I knew I couldn't do this, and I knew what was going to happen. And I got tired of playing the game. I got tired of living the way I was living, and the most frustrating part about it is that I wouldn't die. that I kept having to wake up and do it again and again and again. And I panhandled some money, and I called this man that was picking me up, this Montana cowboy, Don. I said, Don, this is, and I used to love to call guys when I was drunk in AA. Oh man, I love you, man. I'm so sorry, man. You know. I said, Don, this is Larry. He goes, yeah. I says, I'm ready to come back to AA. Will you come and get me? And he told me the most profound thing I've ever heard in my life. He said, no. He says, you know where we are. You know what we got. Why don't you get your rusty rear down here yourself? I'm tired of chasing after you. And he hung up. I said, oh my God, you know, whatever happened to that AA love? You know? I just heard it. And for the first time in my life, it was up to me to come to you. It was no longer necessary for the good people of Alcoholics Anonymous to be inconvenienced by my nonsense. And I made that 10-mile walk with my poopy pants and no hope, because I had to ask this guy, I had to ask him something. It took me 2 weeks to get there. But I finally rolled up to that Alano Club on a Thursday, and there was 2 people from Texas, Frank and Lucia. And they didn't send me off to a detox, and they didn't send me off to they got me some honey and orange juice. And they walked me around, and they gave me buttermilk of all things. And when I was shaken, they would hold me. And they held me all afternoon. And I told them, I got to talk to Don. I got to talk to Don. We know it, keep walking. And at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Don finally showed up, that Montana cowboy. And I asked him that question. I said, Don, I don't know what to do with my life. I said, would you be my sponsor? That guy lit up like a chandelier for about 5 seconds, and then he lit into me for 20 minutes. And he gave me the wood, man, I tell you. Under no certain terms. Here's the deal, Larry. You make the effort, I'll make the effort. You don't make the effort, leave me alone, kid. There's guys that want this stuff. I'm tired of fussing with you. And I fell in love with him. I fell in love with him. And after that afternoon, that night, he stood me up. I felt his little chubby hands holding me up. And at 115 pounds, everybody has chubby hands, you know. And he lifted me up there. I said, my name is Larry Thomas, and I'm an alcoholic. And for the first time in my life, I knew what it meant. I wasn't doing it to get a court card signed. I wasn't to do it something because I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be with you guys. And that night, he was going to take me back to the mission, and he says, you know what? He says, you're coming over to my house tonight. I said, great. He says, yeah, you're going to sleep at my house tonight. Oh, this is great, man. And, you know, I could smell the waffles already, man. This is great, man. You know, I'm going to sleep in a house and fireplace, and yes. And he rolls up, and he goes into the house, and he comes back, and he has an abandoned camper. It's not even hooked onto a truck, it's on bricks. It's not really a camper that goes overhead, it's just a box on the back of a truck. He goes, I want you to get in here and spend the day. I said, Jesus, you know. Won't your dog get mad? You know. I says, take me back to the mission, you know. Now I want you to stay in here tonight, you know. I don't want to stay in here tonight, you know. Now get in there. And he says, in the morning, you know, we'll go to a meeting, and we'll start going to meetings. And he slams the door, and I'm in this little camper, you know, and I'm going, God, you know. And he comes running back, and he opens up the door and says, oh, and he says, by the way, and he says, while you're locked up in here, he says, you better find a God. And he slammed the door again. Find a God? I'm in a camper, hotshot, you know. Where is he? The glove box, maybe? And I tell you, you know, when you're new and shaken, there's no sleeping, right? You're up, and the trees are breathing and stuff, you know. And I'm looking out that window, and I'm watching the trees breathe and stuff like that, and the thought came to me that I'm never going to be new again. I'm tired of being new. Tired of being new in the neighborhood, new in jail, new here. I'm just so tired of being new. I'm going to do everything this goofy carpenter tells me to do, because I'm not going to let anybody run me out of this place. I'm going to find out everything I can about this place. I've never done anything 100% in my life, and I'm going to start here. I didn't know I was taking the third step. I had no idea. And that man loved me. Loved me good. Loved me good, man. He taught me about making amends to mom and dad. He taught me about making amends. My mom, I've always wanted to be a good son. How are you going to be a good son if you don't even have a higher power or a thing called God? And Alcoholics Anonymous told me that my own conception. And because of my commitments in my home group, I was able to tap in on my own conception. Because something was happening when I was with my people in the home group. I could watch them and see results. And I had my little goofy commitments. And it dawned on me that the more I serve you, the clearer he becomes. And that the more I serve me, the darker I become. That there's a miracle here. Things happen to me when I'm being useful to you. Things happen to me. I found my place. And I'm God's son. I'm my mother and father's son. I'm AA's son. My sponsor told me I'm his son. Johnny told me, Larry, he says, I don't have any boys. I've never had any boys. But if I did, you'd be it. You can't love me anymore to make me love you anymore. There's nothing you can do to make me love you anymore. And there's nothing you can do to make me hate you. I just love you, son. And all I ever want to do is carry this message to Alcoholics Anonymous, son. That's all I need to do. That's all there is to do. There's one answer for all problems, no matter what it is. Trust God, clean house, and work with it. And your life becomes one big 12-step call. Because what you do in here is so wonderful. You take it home. And you take it to work. And just be useful to the boss without telling him you're in AA. My boss don't care how many chips I have. Dig the ditch. Just dig the ditch. You know? One of the most beautiful ladies I've ever met was my mom. And I love making a news for her. I love to take care of her. And I know I got to wrap this up. And there came a time when I was able to take care of my mom. What a window that was, a pleasure that was. And my mom got to the place where she couldn't remember, and I was doing things for her, and she lived at this assisted living, and I'd go over there and I would give her all of her supplies and just sit with her and let her have the same conversations, and I'd pretend like I'd never heard of her because I loved hearing her voice. And one day I came over there and I had my little box of diapers and stuff, and her friend, Catherine, who looked like Dionne Warwick, she did, beautiful lady of color, and she had her little walker, and she's sitting there with my mom, and I'd bring over my goodies, and I'd give my mom a big kiss and stuff. She goes, hi, honey. And Catherine looks at me, and she says, Larry. I said, what is it, Catherine? She says, I need to tell you something. And I says, what's that? She says, I'm available. I thought, my God, I still got it. Not at all. I said, what's that? She says, I'm available. I said, what do you mean, huh? She says, I'm available for you to do to me what you do to your mom. And so I had 2 visitors. Before you know it, I had about 4 or 5 of these gals. And then I would visit. And I remember one time, I noticed that at this place that all the ladies had balconies, and they all had real flowers. And then I looked at my mom's, and she had plastic flowers. And I thought, Larry, you cheap son of a... Look at, everybody's got roses and lilies, real ones, and she's got plastic. Not anymore, Betty. You're getting real roses. I said, Mom, take a look at those flowers. It's the last time you're going to see them. Oh, why? Why? What are you going to do? I said, I'm getting you real flowers. Oh, no, I don't want real flowers. I said, no, Mom, you don't have to pay for it. I said, I'm going to get you real flowers, and I'm going to take care of them. No, I don't want, no, you don't have to take care of them. I'm going to water them, I'm going to take care of them, and I'm going to get you real flowers. No, I don't want no real flowers. And I says, why don't you want any real flowers? She says, I want my plastic flowers. And I says, how come? She says, I love to see the hummingbirds suffer. I got one story to tell you, and then I got to get out of here. I get the privilege of visiting folks who are locked up, and every now and then I get to write people letters. And if you guys ever come out to Bellflower, the Big Book Group, you can find me in the third row and the third seat on the left side, without a doubt. And it wasn't too long ago I started writing this fella. And this story's for Jennifer. And I started writing this guy who was locked up and he's going to do life. And he's up at one of our institutions in California, and we start writing. And I didn't know what to write him about, so I wrote him about you. Wrote about some of the people that I see in AA and some of the folks that I've known in AA and what we do at our home groups. And then he would write me about his meetings on the inside. And then one day I wrote him about my first step. And Samuel wrote me about his first step. And then I wrote him about my second step. And Samuel wrote me about his second step. And what I come to find out was Samuel was about 6'5", 300-some pound man of color. And we kept writing, and then one letter I got, and it says something like this. Larry says, today I woke up and I got your letter, and I'm sitting out in the yard, and I'm watching the guys weightlift, and I'm watching them play handball, and I don't know when I'm getting out. But he says, today I have a dream. Today I have a dream. He says, I'm not used to being locked up and having dreams. He says, but today I have one, and I need to tell you what it is. He says, my dream is simply this, my friend. One of these days I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to be sober, and I'm going to be released from this place. And when I get out, I'm going to take that Greyhound bus from Folsom to Bellflower, California on Monday morning. And I'm going to go to the Big Book Group, and I'm going to find the third row and the third seat. And I'm going to come up there, and I'm going to tell you, my name's Sam, and that I love you. He says, that's my dream. I think about it every day. I thought about it for a while, too. And eventually I stopped thinking about it. And then one Monday, we're sitting at our meeting, and they're getting ready to hit the gavel. And me and my beautiful wife, Rosie, I love so much, we're sitting down, and I get this tap on my shoulder. And I turn around, and this big black man picks me up, and he starts swinging me around. I felt like an hors d'oeuvre. You know what I mean? And he sits me down, and he says, is your name Larry Thomas? And I said, you better hope so. He says, well, my name is Samuel. And I came here to tell you that I love it. And he says, because I knew where I'd find you. And I'm here to tell you folks tonight that my name is Larry Thomas. And I'm a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And because of people like you and rooms like this, I have a life to live that I can't wait to tell you about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. We're so grateful for your service. But will you please step up here again because we have one more thing to ask of you. Thought you were done. All right. Now for the most important part of the meeting. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we symbolize the beginning of our journey to sobriety by giving desire chips to anyone who wants one. This is an outward symbol of an inward desire to try our way of life for 24 hours and to give up the high cost of low living. If you're here tonight and you want to start that journey, or if you want to come home after a relapse or a slip, if you want what we have, and if you're willing to go to any lengths to get it, then please come up here and let Larry give you a desire chip and a hug. Let's say hi to Trevina. Let's say hi to Crystal. Anyone else? We have more. All right, anyone? Anyone? All right, also, Larry, we have a gift for you. Thank you so much. All right, but one more thing, Larry, when the meeting's over, do you mind coming up to the podium so that people may thank you on their way out? All right. So, y'all, we have literature and speaker CDs for sale in the back and also t-shirts, where you may also make your 7 tradition contributions with your credit or debit card. Please consider being of service and stay after to help with cleanup. And please come to the double doors to my right and let one of our coordinators, I think Eric R., know you're here to help. Again, please put your cigarette butts in the receptacle. If you throw them on the ground, someone here tonight will have to clean up after you. And please come back next month, always on the second Saturday of the month, and please bring a dish for the potluck. So let's go ahead and close, staying where you are and not trying to circle up, and we're going to close with the Lord's. Thank you all for being here, our 8th anniversary. I'm sorry, okay, pause. We have to stack the chairs, so remember that stack them in groups of 10, right? Do we have to do the tables too? Yeah. Okay, did y'all hear that? Stack the chairs, leave the tables. All right, who's Father?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and power, and glory forever. Amen. Keep coming back with the grocery work.
He's good.